Fantastic Spider-Man, spectacular Spider-Man, badass movie Spider-Man. That's what Spider-Man Homecoming makes me want to say. Go out and see this film because I'm telling you right away at the beginning of the review that it's freaking awesome and you need to go see it. So I'm going to be in Canada for the next 2 days. We'll be back on Monday. So I wanted to do a quick review for Spider-Man Homecoming that I saw with Dell and Angerbeard, but I'll just do a review with you here, non-spoilers, and then maybe a spoilers discussion video afterwards. So, Spider-Man, been rebooted 3 times. Is it worth it the third time to go through it? Fuck yes, okay? The fact that they went with a 15-year-old Peter Parker is wonderful, and it makes this Spider-Man, in my opinion, sort of closer to the comic book Spider-Mans that we've seen, and you could feel that in the actual film. The fact that it's, and then they say Spider-Man Homecoming, right? There's actually a homecoming at his high school, and I will, granted, this Spider-Man film has a lot more of Peter Parker sort of growing into Spider-Man than I maybe originally thought. The action is not world-ending, fucking lasers in the sky. It's not that kind of world-ending, action film. It is a part of the Marvel Universe, but this is Sony. And I think Sony did an incredibly smart thing here by saying that because Spider-Man is relatively new, he's going to handle sort of the lower-level bad guys right now, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And instead of this being a negative thing, I think it really helps the film. Number one, we don't need to see an epic world-ending fucking movie every fucking time because you're gonna get tired of that. This one, it's closer to the characters. It's closer to him growing up, his friends, his mentors, and the eventual lower-level villains that he faces in Vulture and Shocker and some of these other obstacles that he has to surpass. So that I think some people might consider it a weakness. I consider it a strength. Now there maybe not as much action as some of the versus films, but there's definitely enough action here, and it ties perfectly into the story. It all has purpose, and I think that does a really good job. John Watts, as the director, did a fantastic job bringing us this younger Spider-Man, this inexperienced Spider-Man. This Spider-Man, by the end of the film, is sort of the Spider-Man that we're hoping for. The story is incredibly smart. After the whole, fight in Civil War, Spider-Man Peter Parker is waiting for another call from Tony Stark to go on additional missions, to do something more for the Avengers, to be a part of this hero thing, and the call just never comes. He's always harassing Tony and Happy and people at S.H.I.E.L.D. Or the Avengers, and it's just hilarious. And while he does this, he has to deal with high school and all that comes with that, and being the outcast, being the nerd, being on going through adolescence, and so most of the film really is about that. It's more about the stuff in high school as a kid dealing with these sort of superpowers, his best friend. And that's what I feel is really, really strong, and what, it's basically the origin story of Spider-Man without the actual spider bite and without the actual origin story. They didn't have to do it like that. They skipped straight to the good stuff. As far as the actors, let's see. Tom Holland, I didn't know how he was going to do as Peter Parker. To be honest, in the trailers, I was really not all that much looking forward to the film. It didn't seem, that interesting to me, but boy, I came into this theater, with some lowered expectations. It exceeded my expectations, and it turns out that this is one of my favorite Spider-Man films of all time. Of all the reboots, we had Tobey Maguire, who was good, and then started to trail off, and then Andrew Garfield, which for me, I never really got on board with Andrew Garfield, But I think Tom Holland, boom, nails Peter Parker, nails Spider-Man, has the wit, has the fun, has the jokes, and has that sense of wonderment, and more the kid Spider-Man, which younger kids are going to relate with perfectly. It's going to be great. So. I think he does a fantastic job, and this is my favorite It's my favorite. I think this and maybe Spider-Man 2 are my favorite Spider-Man films, and I have to rewatch Spider-Man 2 to see if I think that this one is better than every single other Spider-Man film that's out. But I can say that it is. Maybe Spider-Man 2, I'll have to look at it. I think all the actors did a fantastic job. Michael Keaton as the Vulture, he brings that sort of unpredictability, that sort of unhinged element that he does so good at, and he's not. And here's another thing, Marvel movies have had, sort of boring villains. This villain is not only believable, but there's, a sense of closeness to the situation because he's more of a ground level villain coming from the people. It's difficult for me to describe, and I don't want to get into it too much, but I'll say that this villain has some interesting dynamics to him, and towards the third act of the film, it really plays into making the battle so much more interesting. And so I really think Michael Keaton, fantastic job as Vulture. I don't really know how they took Vulture and made him cool, but they did. And then you had Shocker. Shocker was more just kind of an on the side kind of thing, and we'll talk more about that in spoilers. Robert Downey Jr., of course, as Iron Man, did a fantastic job. Now, I was a little annoyed, let me be honest, a little annoyed that the fact that now Iron Man is so tied in so closely with Spider-Man, he can't separate himself from Iron Man in this incarnation of Spider-Man. I kind of wanted Spider-Man to do his own thing. However, if you're going to do the whole Iron Man mentor, Iron Man possible father figure, then this is the way to do it. And Robert Downey Jr. plays fantastically Tony Stark in sort of an awkward mentoring of, Tom Holland's Peter Parker character, the whole opening the door but looking like he's hugging him, and I'm not hugging you, I'm opening. Yeah, stuff like that. I think does a really good job. I was worried that he was going to flirt too much with the younger aunt, but that never really happens. So I'm glad that they respected that. The younger aunt still bothers me. Marissa Tomei as May Parker. I'm still not down with the younger one, but I understand why they did it because Peter's so young, so obviously his aunt is going to be younger, and it's really smart if you think about it for Sony and for Marvel by extension to get such young actors in these roles, because we will have Tom. I think he did a good enough job to where he won't be rebooted in 5 years. You know what I mean? We'll see a continuation. They've already announced that Spider-Man 2 sequel is going to launch the new phase of the of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So Tom Holland is here to stay, and I'm glad for it. He earns it by the end of this film. We see John Favreau as Happy Hogan. Sorry for the name butcher, but this is the director of the original Iron Man that pretty much helped start the DCU or the Marvel universe, and it's just so funny to see him in his role again, and I really love it. And he does a great job. Even the side characters, Donald Glover is in it. Bokeem Woodbine is in it. Shocker, and there was a Hannibal Buress. So many different characters. I got to say, one of my favorites here, let me find his name, is Peter Parker's best friend, Jacob Jacob Batalon as Ned, Peter Parker's best friend. So good, so much fun. This is totally the way your best friend would act if he figured out you were Superman. He wanted to ask you a ton of questions. You had to trust him to keep your secret. The whole high school dynamic is just perfect. And granted, a lot of the film is set in high school and a lot of the high school situations, so it's almost like Breakfast Club with some superheroes and some action, and then the Avengers hanging over and looming, and it works wonderfully. The interplay between him and his best friend, and I hope that continues. I hope to see Ned in future films and keep that going. So I think it's just a great film. They nailed it. There's Parker has a love interest here. This is one that I was a little worried about. The love interest name is Liz, and she's sort of like a senior, and Peter Parker is younger, and she's like on the same debate team, and he's just got this huge crush on her. We never really see why or know why, but hey, it's boy, puppy love. So he's got a crush on her. She's not Mary Jane. I'm like, where the hell is Mary Jane? But eventually they do sort of explain that and tie that into it, and it ends in such an interesting way, in a way that I didn't expect, and in a way that I thought that was respectful of the intelligence of audience members and showing things. And we'll talk more about that in the spoilers. It ends in a way that may surprise you, or maybe it won't surprise you. I don't know. But yeah, so I had so much fun with Spider-Man: Homecoming. I think it is one of my favorite, if not one of my favorite Marvel films. But it's not a Marvel film. It's a Sony film. It is okay. It is my favorite Sony side film. Okay, I got to rewatch Spider-Man 2, but I think it is just because it nails this new vision of Spider-Man. We don't have to go through his origin story again. Literally, there's a few lines to it that the spider bit you. Yeah, spider bit me. Where is this? Do I get this? Should I get bit by a spider? He's like, the spider's dead. He's like, fuck, I can't. Because Ned wants to get the powers too, and he's asking, I want to get bit so that I can be Spider-Man or have your powers. And I don't know. It does this great friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That's the film that you should expect. It's not a world-ending, Avengers level threat. It is a local threat to, his town, his city, his loved ones, and that is well done. I think everything worked across the board for me, except for maybe Aunt May, but she did an acceptable job at where it doesn't bother you at all. None of it bothers you. There's so little to complain about here. I can't really think of a big negative. And so I was thinking, if I can't think of a big negative, and I don't hate anything in the film, and I thought it was perfectly executed or well executed, what's holding me back from a 10 out of 10? There was several people that I talked with at the theater. They were doing, people were doing cosplay, and it was Alamo Drafthouse. We were having a good time. Spider-Man was there, Deadpool, Black Cat, some other characters. And I was asking people as they were leaving, they were like, oh, yeah, it's 10 out of 10. I think for me, maybe the only weak point in it is you could see room for growth. Because but you're growing along with the character, and he finally manages to sort of find himself and become the Spider-Man we know by the end. So it seems like there's so much potential for the next film, if they do it right, to really nail it 10 out of 10 if they retain the same writers and same director. I'm surprised the writing team is like 6 people. And usually when a screenwriting team is that long or that many people, it's a disaster. But here, it's written perfectly. They nail Peter Parker and every character almost perfectly. I'd say that I think that it's a 9. My final verdict for Spider-Man: Homecoming is a 9 out of 10. One of the highest 9 out of 10s I could give. Go out and see this. You won't regret it. You're going to have a ton of fun. If you love Spider-Man, you're going to have a ton of fun. There was surprisingly a few adult jokes there. There's one joke in particular that I felt, I'm pretty progressive, but I know how many young kids are in the theater, and so I was like, they're going to be asking what that is, and that's going to be an awkward conversation for some parents. I think a few of you know what I'm talking about. We'll talk about it in spoilers. But other than that, I'd say maybe the fact that Iron Man, it is essentially Spider Iron Man. You know what I mean? There's a lot of Tony Stark, a lot of technology, and so maybe that lessens Spider-Man's specialness, and instead of sort of earning it and then coming on board. But like I said, it's perfect, and perfect. It opens so good. I should have said this at the beginning of the video, but that sort of hand camera style of how he fought with the Avengers and stole Captain America's shield. It starts the film film perfectly. It sets the tone for the rest of the film, and it's beautifully executed. So, highest 9 out of 10 I can give. Recommendation to go out to the theater this weekend and help make this film successful and show Sony that, yes, thank you for allowing Marvel to get their hands on Spider-Man and move forward. And this is the way that we want to see it. Fantastic opening theme, throwing back to the 1960s Spider-Man theme, though I would have preferred if he threw back to the 90s cartoon, because Spider-Man, Spider-Block, Spider-Blood, Spider-Blood, you know, that's my theme right there. But the 60s theme is pretty cool, too. All right, guys, so definitely go out and see this one, and I will see you guys on the next Angry Joe Show and in the separate spoilers discussion, okay? See you then.